It's been over a decade since we've seen the ZDX nameplate in America. However, for 2024, Acura has brought the trend-setting coupe-style SUV name back. However, this time, they've brought it back as the ultimate electric luxury SUV. I'm at a studio in Detroit, Michigan, and now that we finally have the new ZDX in the sheet metal, let's go ahead and take a first look. So when it comes to fully electric vehicles, American Honda has been playing a little bit of catch up because, as you guys know, until now, there hasn't been a mass-produced long-range electric vehicle in the Honda or Acura lineup. However, that is soon about to change, and the ZDX is going to be the vehicle that throws Acura into the electrified space. And they also, as you guys, most of you know, went to GM to kind of start this vehicle because this is sharing a platform with the Ultium platform with vehicles like the Cadillac Lyriq and the upcoming Chevrolet Blazer EV, which to me, honestly, is a really great place to start. However, let's go ahead and start talking about what the ZDX has in terms of the bones. Now, I would typically open up the hood and show you guys what's underneath here and show you if it has a frunk. However, Acura has asked me not to open up the hood because this is a very early pre-production car. However, if you guys remember the Lyriq, when we reviewed that a little over a year ago, that did not have a frunk. So I expect the ZDX to also have a frunk. And this vehicle, when it launches, will launch in America in early 2024 with two different powertrain options, one battery size. It's going to be a massive 102 kilowatt hour battery pack. Remember, this is sharing a platform with the Ultium platform from GM, and it's going to launch in either A-Spec or Type S trim. This model that I'm showing you here is the Type S, the high performance variant, which means it offers up to 500 horsepower. That's what Acura is saying what the estimated power is, which is actually matching the power of the all-wheel drive Lyriq, which you can buy today. If you guys go for an A-Spec, that'll be available in single motor rear-wheel drive with around 340 horsepower or a dual motor all-wheel drive version. Acura says that model will go up to 325 miles on a full charge, which is actually the most range that you can find in the platform of the Ultium platform of these mid-size luxury SUVs. This model here, the Type S, has bigger wheels, which lowers the range to around 288 miles, which is still very impressive. Acura hasn't talked about performance figures just yet, but if you guys look at the Lyriq, though, that model will either do 0 to 60 in the mid-5s or the mid-4-second range, so I suspect this model should be similar, but we'll have to let you guys know when Acura has more information or when we finally drive this vehicle. But let's go ahead and talk about the styling elements because, as you guys know, Acura has been showing off their latest design element here with their diamond pentagon grille. Of course, it kind of goes in a slightly different direction for the ZDX. Their chicane full LED headlights here are dominating the front. You can see every ZDX has the full LED headlights with the jewel eye design. You have that chicane style daytime running light with LED daytime running lights. You can see the diamond pentagon grille has a new illuminated surround portion. You can see it's also closed off because it's an EV. And then you can see the massive Acura logo here. That's going to house the camera, which is nicely integrated. And of course, the Acura Watch 360 Plus, which is actually a new technology on the ZDX. The Type S also has a more aggressive front fascia. The front overhang of this car is also really short, and you can also see the hood is incredibly sculpted. It's definitely going to give it a more aggressive looking design. You also have some piano black and some silver accents in the front. We'll talk about more about those silver accents as you get around the side of the vehicle, but let me know in the comment section below. I actually think this is a really handsome looking car, and to me, from this angle, you can't really tell that it shares a platform with the Cadillac Lyriq, and that's kind of what the beauty about the ZDX is. Now, looking at the side profile, unlike the first generation ZDX, which was like a coupe-ified SUV, this model here, as you can see, has a more conventional SUV shape, which we'll talk about in just a moment. In terms of the dimensions, this thing is big. Now, the old ZDX, which I know technically doesn't even share anything with this car because this is a GM electric SUV, the old ZDX was around 5.5 inches shorter. This vehicle here at 197.7 inches long is almost the same length as the current generation MDX. Actually, in terms of the overall length compared to the Lyriq, this is about an inch longer in the overall length. Its wheelbase, however, 121.8 inches long. That is longer than the wheelbase of the MDX, and compared to the old ZDX, this has a wheelbase that's 13.5 inches long. Compared to the Lyriq, which this vehicle here, again, very similar, it's around an inch taller, but also an inch narrower. So really beautiful proportions. And then if you look at the wheels of this vehicle, Acura will offer a 20-inch wheel or a 22-inch wheel. This is the first SUV or vehicle from Acura with a massive 22-inch wheel. You can see this model here has like a multi-spoke design with the two-tone machine and black finish look. You can also get a fully blacked out finish, a gloss black, when you go for a performance performance tire and wheel package. You can see the wheels also measure a 275 by 40 R22. It's a Michelin all-season tire. You can also get summer tires, and then you can see the Type S has exclusive brakes, massive 15.6-inch rotors. That's 3 inches bigger versus the rotors that you get on the A-Spec, and then you also have these yellow-painted Brembo Acura-branded calipers, which they look really good with this double apex blue pearl. Remember, this color first was shown on the Acura Precision EV concept, and I have to tell you guys, when I first saw this color in pictures, it doesn't do it justice, because here in the light in the studio, you can really see the beautiful metallic fleck in the paint, and I think it looks fantastic. I'm looking forward to seeing this color on other Acura products. Now you can see the charge port door is located here on the driver fender. Now it's actually a manual charge port door, which is different versus the Lyriq, because that has a power operated charge port door. You can see this has the CCS combo with the J1772 plug. Acura has just announced that they are adopting the NACS charging plug. That's the one that Tesla uses. So by the year 2025, all Acura EVs will have that plug. Until then, you're going to be able to use an adapter so you can go to those Tesla charging stations. Acura is also working with 6 other brands to develop their own charging network. They're going to say that's going to be the largest charging network across the world by the year 2030. They're going to start opening up stations as early as next summer. Now, looking at the rest of the profile here, you can see there's a black painted side mirror and then a black roof. There's also a big panoramic glass roof, which I believe should be standard. There is some chrome along the side of the vehicle here that kind of stands out compared to the black, but to me, what really stands out, however, is the silver accent along the side rocker panel. Now, Acura says that they did that design for a reason. They claimed that in the studio, when they claimed that when they had it fully painted, it didn't stand out as much, and their design team made the decision to kind of go with the silver. I personally think it draws your eyes a little to the lower portion of the vehicle, which I don't think is a good thing. So my understanding, most owners may end up just painting that. Maybe Acura will also paint it at some point, but also keep in mind, most people end up buying like a white or silver or a black, and it shouldn't stand out quite as much as it does on this brighter blue exterior color. But moving around to the rear here, you can see, again, it's not a coupe style SUV, which I kind of very much appreciate as a conventional squared off design. And then looking at the rear of the vehicle, it has the same kind of signature design elements that you expect from an Acura. You have these full LED taillights that have kind of like that chicane style to the taillight design. You have the Type S badging at the back, ZDX badging, and then there's a new electric badge here. You can see it actually tries to look like a plug, but there's actually an E in there. It's actually a really clever design, so I'm looking forward to seeing that on other Acura products. All of the ZDX Type X models will be all-wheel drive. Remember, if you want rear-wheel drive, you have to step down to the A-Spec model, which is also kind of cool. This is the first rear-wheel drive Acura SUV ever, so there's a lot of firsts for this car, being the most powerful and the first ever rear-wheel drive SUV. I also appreciate the fact that there is a rear wiper here. A lot of EVs are removing that. And back here, I actually kind of wish there was a bigger spoiler. The Type S model could have done with like a little bit more of an aggressive spoiler to do something to differentiate it. But overall, I think this is a handsome design. I much prefer the look of this compared to the Lyriq and, of course, the Chevrolet Blazer EV, which both of those are technically already on sale. Now, looking at the cargo area, Acura doesn't have final figures for us just yet, but we can kind of go on what the Lyriq has because it's a similar size. The Lyriq has around 29 cubic feet of storage space with the seats up, so I'm assuming this will be around the same. You can see there's this nicely finished area over here with some metallic trim. You can look underneath here. There's a little bit of storage, although I expected that to be a little bit deeper. A lot of other EVs offer that. And if you want to fold down the second row seats, remember, this vehicle does not come with a third row. You'll have to buy an MDX to get that. Acura, again, doesn't have final figures, but the Lyriq has a little over 63 cubic feet of space. So I suspect this should be pretty similar. Obviously, by the numbers, it's not that impressive, but if you compare it to the old ZDX, this actually has around 10 to 15% more cargo space, so that squared off shape certainly gives it more practicality. So now let's go ahead and move into the interior of the all-new 2024 ZDX. Now, I know a lot of you are probably thinking, you're worried because, first of all, the door did sound pretty good. Because this vehicle shares a platform with the Cadillac Lyriq and the Chevrolet Blazer, what is the interior like? Does this feel like an Acura or does this feel like a General Motors product? And I'm here to tell you, it feels like a General Motors product. It even smells like a General Motors product in here. They kind of use the same kind of materials. That's not necessarily a bad thing. I'm not trying to rip on GM here. And Acura did kind of go with their own design cues in here. But you can see with the overall interior, it's definitely a little bit different, actually a lot different versus what you see in something like the MDX. But the materials, I will say, are very solid. The door panel here you can see has a very nice soft touch injection molded plastic. There's this kind of aluminum trim here on the Type S trim. There's also a lot of ambient lighting, which I sadly can't show you today, but Acura says there's 26 different colors that you can change it to. This area here is also nice and padded. When I look at the door handles, that reminds me of a GM. The switchgear also reminds me of a GM. The buttons here for the seat memory and the door lock switches also remind me of a GM. The steering wheel, however, it looks like an Acura product. I love the flat bottom design. All ZDXs will have a flat bottom wheel. You can see there's a Type S badge here. Then you're also noticing this right here. This is actually a version of Super Cruise. Acura calls it Acura Watch 360 Plus Hands-Free Cruise. The Hands-Free Cruise, of course, means that there's a camera that watches your face. This vehicle has one of the best hands-free driving assistance features you're gonna find on the highway today. So that's actually a really good thing. What isn't a good thing for me, however, is when I start pushing this button, that is a GM bong, which I don't like. I'm hoping Acura at some point will swap that out for their own chime. But in case you guys were wondering, yes, it has a GM bong. The rest of the infotainment system here, which this is a very early pre-production car. Acura has asked me not to touch or play with the software. You have an 11.3-inch screen over here, which again is a pretty good size. It's about an inch smaller versus what you find in the MDX. And then you have an 11-inch instrument cluster. Now, the software here is all Google. This is an Android-based operating system. And it's the first Acura to get a Google software system in its interior. And unlike GM products, it's going to have wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto and over-the-air updates. Because as you guys heard, General Motors is kind of phasing out CarPlay because they're saying their software is going to be better. So kind of keep that in mind. I do also like how the quality in here seems pretty good. It's an early pre-production car. The knobs, they have a nice high-quality tactile feel. You have dual-zone automatic climate control. Again, the buttons here for the climate control, the heated and ventilated seats, the power seats, which are, I believe, 14-way adjustable. They all remind me of some GM products. But again, not necessarily a bad thing. There's some pretty nice materials here, soft touch materials over here. It's also even soft touch up here. You also get a nice heads-up display. And this is also the first Acura to debut their Bang & Olufsen stereo system. It's an 18-speaker sound system. Acura says, again, it's one of the best in the industry. I'll have to test it out at some point for you audiophiles out there. I do love Bang & Olufsen. That could be a huge deciding factor for you. Looking at the center console here, you can see it's very wide, which is a good and a bad thing because it does intrude a little bit on the space over here. Now, thankfully, there's this nice leather stitch portion over here for the passenger's knee, perhaps. Over here on the driver's side, it is hard touch plastic, but it also is an early production car. Massively wide center console area here where you can literally put two smartphones here if you'd like. You have two USB-C charging ports, cup holders here. I like how it's not a piano black plastic trim, which would attract fingerprints and smudges. However, you can see the wireless phone charging pad is right here. This literally looks like it was pulled out of a GM product, but it does fit your phone. There's a lot of room in there for your smartphone, of course. And then over here, you can see padded armrest area. And then if you open this up, you can see pretty deep storage area. There's a light in there. No actual power outlets or USB ports. That's all located over here. And then you can see over here the rear view mirror. This is going to offer most likely the digital camera rear view mirror. This is kind of the same unit that I've seen in some other GM products. So that's technically a really good thing. And then looking at the glove compartment here, you can see it's a bin style. It's damped but not lined with felt. It offers a pretty good amount of storage. There's also a little more storage underneath here, underneath the center console, where you can kind of hide away some items. The seats, actually, I love the seats. Now you can take a pick between either black, red, or this ivory or this light orchid interior. I'm sorry. You can see it has some suede Alcantara. It has heat and ventilation. You have the Type S badge in the head restraints. These seats actually remind me more of an Acura. They feel really high quality. They feel really supportive as well. So I'm looking forward to trying this vehicle out, driving it on some longer trips. But overall, from, you know, the parts bin stuff, like obviously Acura is borrowing a lot of stuff here from GM, but what I will say is the design looks really nice, and it also has some great tech in the vehicle. So don't knock it before you actually sit in the vehicle. And the beauty about, you know, sharing from GM is they get some great tech in here, like the Super Cruise or Acura Hands-Free Cruise. And you also have the great software with the infotainment system and some, you know, really nice touches in here, like the ambient lighting. Now, because the ZDX is such a large vehicle and it has such a long wheelbase, what you are going to get back here when you get into the back seat is plenty of space. Now, Acura, of course, doesn't have final legroom figures just yet, but when I get back here, we can actually kind of compare it to the rear seat legroom figures in the Lyriq, which that model has just under 40 inches of legroom, which would make this around the tops in the segment. You can see this is pretty much where I'd have the seat to drive, and I'm 5'7". There's a ton of legroom space over here. I love the fact that the floor is completely flat to show this is a dedicated electric vehicle architecture. You have rear seat air vents, your own set of climate controls, which again looks a lot like a GM vehicle, which is not a bad thing. You have 3-stage heated seats, you have your own power outlet, you have 2 USB-C charging ports, which is nice, along with 2 storage cubbies. And then back here, you can see, actually, there's some of the ambient lighting. There's a little bit of detail here. This is a really early pre-production car. You also have these manual sunshade blockers, which is nice. Soft touch materials here, soft touch materials here, more metal speaker cover accents for the Bang & Olufsen sound. And then what I also love is the back seat here, in addition to it kind of folding down like how you'd expect it to allow for more space, it also has the ability to kind of give you a recline function. So this is with it more upright, and then you can also put it down into a more reclined function as well. There's a armrest here that folds down and gives you 2 cup holders. And again, in terms of headroom space, the sunroof comes all the way to the back. Sadly, I can't open this to show you that. It has no power. The headroom space is compromised slightly, so keep in mind if you guys are over 6 feet, you may run into a little bit of headroom space issues, but if you're under 6 feet, this should be, again, one of the most comfortable back seats in the class. So with the entire industry moving toward the electric vehicle space, the all-new ZDX is clearly a very important new addition for the Acura lineup. And after spending some time taking a look at the new ZDX, I have to say, I'm totally in love with the styling of this vehicle, including this color. I wish that I could see it without the silver accent along the bottom, but again, that's something you can easily finish on your own. In terms of the battery tech, obviously borrowing from General Motors and their Ultium architecture was a smart move for Acura because the company is planning to eventually work on their own development for EVs, but that's probably won't be ready for another 3 to 4 years. So until then, they're kind of sharing the tech with General Motors, which is a pretty good thing. Like I said earlier, up to 325 miles of range, up to 190 kilowatts of max DC fast charging, which means you should probably go from 10 to 80% in about 30 minutes. So not quite as fast as the fastest GM Ultium products, but still very, very good. And then 500 horsepower for the Type S model. Now that's matching the power of the Lyriq. However, it is a little bit less than versus what Chevrolet has quoted for the Blazer SS. So kind of keep that in mind. But I am looking forward to driving this vehicle. It should be around a 4.5 second vehicle 0 to 60 wise. The interior, as you guys saw, shares a lot with General Motors, which can be a good or bad thing depending on, again, how you feel about General Motors as a brand. I personally think GM has been doing a really great job with their interiors as part of a lot of these newer SUVs. So I actually understand why Acura decided to do that. It was a business decision for them. And with the fact that they're sharing parts and sharing development, it has allowed this vehicle to be a little bit more affordable in terms of pricing. Because remember, this is a GM vehicle. It's built in North America, which means it's going to qualify for the $7,500 federal tax credit, at least for now, unlike, again, some other Japanese vehicles which are built in Japan or built outside of America. So kind of keep that in mind. Acura wasn't ready to talk about full pricing, but they did say that you can go to their website today, you can put down basically build one, you can order it, and you can kind of submit it to a dealership to be part of an early reservation program. And basically, if you guys want the A-Spec model with a single motor rear wheel drive, it should start in the $60,000 range. Now that compares very favorably with the Lyriq. That also starts just under $60,000, can go into the mid $60,000 range depending on options. Acura says the Type S is going to be more expensive. This will be in the $70,000 range, which would kind of put it in line with something like the MDX Type S, because that model is around 68 grand, around 75 loaded with the advanced package. So for a vehicle that's around the same size, it offers way more horsepower. This offers like 145 more horsepower than the MDX Type S, although it is also going to be a lot heavier. And it's also going to come in under that $80,000 price cap that the new EV regulations have put into place. So this vehicle, again, will qualify for that tax credit. It should be a nice welcome addition. And then also keep in mind, if you guys are looking for a Honda and Acura electric SUV that's a little bit less expensive, they also do have the Honda version coming out, which will be called the Prologue. We should be having a new version of that, or we should be having a video of that come out at a later date. But with all that said, hope you guys have enjoyed my full overview here on the the all-new reintroduced Acura ZDX. If you're also looking to see the latest cars I'm testing, be sure to follow me on Instagram at Redline_reviews, like us on Facebook, and as always, guys, please keep subscribing to the Redline Reviews YouTube channel for all the latest reviews. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you all in the next video.